We shall start in this rather obscure looking field. Imagine there being a bomb store over there, and this being part of a partial runway, I believe. And the significance of where I'm standing here is where you can see just to that tree line there's a few cottages. And then if I put this brochure and picture up in front of you, that is a Liberator, kind of smaller version of a flying fortress, heavy bomber used during the Second World War. They were based here. This would have been RAF Harrington. We are here to have a look at something unusual, a Cold War nuclear missile base. So here's some of your signage. The large planes the carpet baggers would have used, Liberator, very similar to a Vickers Wellington bomber, which I've got to do a story. I keep meaning to do this story and I haven't done it yet. And that is the story of Bintley and the water tower that happened locally to us at Mersley. A foggy night back in the 1940s during the Second World War. It circled twice, clipped the water tower, and unfortunately everyone was killed on board. There's a blue plaque there, and I'll just at some point bring the story to you. So this is like special operations after the Second World War. As I said, the Cold War come, and you had these 4 missiles erected here, kept on standby. And at the end of the war, I didn't know that, they were dismantled, and the propulsion that was used for them, the rockets themselves, were used to take up satellites. A plaque and memorial dedicated to your servicemen and women of the RAF and the United States Air Force. Here's your memorial itself, your poppy wreaths laid here every Remembrance Day. There's a Liberator there, United States Air Force Special Operation. Now the OSS, I believe that is like the original form of the CIA, MI5, that type of thing, Special Services. If anyone served here, give yourself a shout out. But we will leave this place and pay respects and go off and find the missile site. Right, good morning guys. Joining me again as usual on these adventures is Adventures of Paul. I won't do these sort of places by myself, it's just not safe to even attempt to. We found ourselves on a perimeter road to adjacent to where the old airfield would have been, and we're going to make our way towards the old ballistic missile, what's left of the silos. So they're grade 2 listed now, so they can never be locked down. Cold War, your Russians and Americans going at each other during the Cold War itself, and I think it was the Cuban Missile Crisis. This actual area was on high alert, they were ready to go, and I believe these 3 actual missiles that were kept here before they were dismantled were aimed specifically at Moscow. So let's go have a look. Okay, you're going to have to forgive the wind because we are pretty much exposed in the open around here, having just crossed this cornfield to get to the first site. This is would have been called RAF Harrington. So yeah, where we are now, this is more of a site of significant interest, shall we say. Probably won't be a great deal left, but let's go and have a look. Your 4 missile itself in preparation would have sat here. These bolted down areas would have held some form of canopy, which I believe further along would have had rails. They would have pulled that back. I believe some sort of hydraulic system was used to get the missile in position so it's pointing upwards. These are generally a blast shield area. To your right there, I expect that's where your accelerant, your fuel, would have been kept. air to the left, and it's like your triangle to the fire. You get that explosion going, it shoots off, and you have one almighty big explosion left afterwards. It's really strange. It sort of kind of feels apocalyptic here anyway, as if a explosion of a nuclear variety has happened here, and this is what remains. Obviously the radiation, nuclear side of it has got half-lives, etc. So by now, if it would have gone off in the time that they were here, actually at this location, which it wouldn't have done because they were pointing at Russia anyway, but it would probably be accessible now. A lot of rubble, a lot of steel, a few drums, etc. Some of this obviously could be a bit of landfill thrown in with it, but this is what remains. These troughs would have been where your fuel or other accelerants would have been pumped through. You can see obviously pipe work there. That probably more had cabling through it than anything else. And that there is where your missile would have sat if it was ever called into action, pointing upwards like a space rocket. As I said, from reading the sign back over there by the memorial, when these rockets were deemed to be obsolete, they actually used the rocket themselves, the carrying version. The warhead probably would have gone to Aldermaston and stripped down, and the actual rocket propellant, etc., was used to transfer satellites into space. Paul's decided to be a tunnelling rat and go underneath. Saves me doing it, I guess. But yeah, I don't believe there would have been anything else. This was just pretty much blast area. You often think, oh, you're going to find some sort of small relic article that you can keep as memento, but I believe this place is pretty barren. Honestly, don't know much about these trenches. I don't know whether this is just, instead of the flames, the initial explosion, if it was ever to go off from here, this area would fill with accelerant fire as opposed to being open, more controlled. Only second guessing. There are experts out there that will know, and this is one of the 3 missile locations that are actually here. I believe there was 20 locations, 60 missiles in total that we had, controlled by the United States. We've always pretty much been a aircraft carrier for the United States, to be honest with you. Some rather large tyres. Thought for 1 minute, I know it's not, there's going to be some form of tractor wheel, but I did think for that little split second that it could have been Formula 1. Look at the size of this beast. I'll do the world's strongest man and lift one of them. A couple of old trailers just to add to the ambience. I believe all of these 3 missile locations here are going to repeat each other with what's here. I suppose they had to, really. They all held the same missile, I believe, to get them going, prepared, ready to go, somewhere in the region of 20 minutes. So I suppose whoever fires first has significantly got the upper hand, because they were ready to go beforehand. But this is all about, I guess, what they call nuclear deterrent. We had them, they had them, and it kind of stopped everything happening. Problem you've got is there's some serious unstable regimes in the world now. Specifically, Russia is probably worse state now than it was, and obviously your likes of North Korea. And as much as the likes of you Americans have got your Patriot missile system to try and stop this, it won't stop every single one. And maybe it wouldn't be a world worth living in if it did actually come to that. There's an above shot of pretty much where we are, showing what it would have looked like from above. This is obviously as it is now. I'll show you another picture of what it would have looked like with the missile on site. I don't believe that is UK, could be wrong, but that's pretty much what the setup would have been. As I said, everything I've turned around and said where the missile would have been housed under a canopy, your fuel accelerant to one side, your air etc. to the other, to give you your two sides of your triangle. And then the ignition would have taken place from probably a hut bunkered down somewhere around the corner. This is of course what it would have looked like in action as it set off. And then of course we've got the aftermath, which is the thing of nightmares, the thing I guess we all truly fear: Armageddon. This is the last of your 3 missile sites. I'm guessing the local farmers just used it to dump tyre tracks. They are specifically off agricultural vehicles, other bits and pieces. It's possibly an old oven down there. And it just shows you, what would that be? It's either stainless or heavy duty aluminium. Kind of looks like aluminium, or aluminum as the Americans would say. Some heavy duty bolts there. Said the significance of this site is not what is left here, but what was here. The significance that had in all our lives during a previous Cold War. I don't believe I'm too far wrong in saying that we're probably in one now, or we will constantly always be in one. Haven't honestly got a clue what this part would have been. The old pheasant startled us out. This isn't where they would have done the controlled takeoff from for the missiles, etc. Maybe it just predates that, or maybe it's just a holding area for materials. It's just too close, not bunkered around enough to offer any protection from where the missiles would sit either side of that shrub line over there. come across probably our first storage facility. I dare say at some point someone's tried to knock this down. Not so much listed as the missile sites themselves, just maybe a storage facility that's to the side. Someone will know what was stored here. Just seems to be a wall now, to be honest with you. Walking adjacent to a bunker area, but you can't gain access because I'm not going to attempt, I'm not stupid enough to walk around the side of that knowing that anything could trigger that collapsing and you would not get out of that alive. So this would have been, I believe, some sort of observation control area for the rockets to go up, because you've got to bear in mind the explosion doesn't take place here. This is just an ignition, this is just propulsion to get the rockets up in the air. And if I pan the camera over here, you can see where the missile base bits, the missile actual locations are. That'd be spot 3. There's a further one to the side and one round the back, that which is the second and the first one. And yeah, from here, with a man-made large banked bunker area with a real thick concrete structure within it, but shrouded by them large straw bales, that I believe could have been some form of possibly observation, properly operational post, unless it was all done by the museum, which is further down that direction. That is your canopied, it's like a very strong concrete and steel building with the large bunker around the side of it. And if you go out and pan out a little bit, turn the camera to the side, you'll see the second missile point and the first one over there to the distance. Really unusual structure here, which I cannot really make any head or tail of. It's very high. I'll tell you what it gives me a view of being. I said I'm no expert on any of these kind of things, but you go to the likes of Luton Airport, Heathrow Airport, Gatwick Airport, the planes taxi down the end of the runway and they turn round, and usually there is a giant concrete platform behind them as they get ready to propel themselves off. Maybe it's something like that, like a jet lag type thing. Not like the jet lagging sleeping, but the lag of the aircraft as it's about to take off. Of course these wouldn't have been jet engines though, they would have been propelled. Or maybe this is after, I don't know, you're just second guessing. It's really weird, it doesn't really have any significant meaning. Is it, it's not a bunker. There's a heck of a lot of concrete there. Someone out there knows for sure though. Found ourselves into a little wooded area. There is remnants of concrete here as well. One thing that's been significant, I've been looking for something like a stand-in shelter, like an Anderson shelter that you'd find frequent. I know there's one round by the museum area at the Harrington Museum, but these are the sort of places they also would have been located adjacent, so people could have got access, hidden away. I said there's some significant, it looks like piping, significant concrete around this area. Just nice to get in the shade because it is an extremely hot day out there. I noticed something from up above, so we're going to get down to this bottom area where I can see there are lumps of steel down there and there is some more concrete, but try and see if what I believe was originally down here exists. I get a feeling we might actually be standing on top of an old bunker. So there's corrugated steel, there's large slabs of concrete scattered everywhere around this bottom area. This is what I see as I was walking above, although it does look more drainage, but that could have been put on top. If you look and get closer to this, it could be totally wrong, could just be a reservoir area. If you take away that pipe in this area here with possibly a step, was that an entrance to a bunker? Honestly don't know, guys, you'd have to make your own conclusions to that. Obviously you wouldn't get through where the pipe is, but that's not to turn around and say that they didn't dump that on top to stop people getting in. I believe that is some form of old pheasant trap, could be. It's got that sort of structure to it. It's very old. And then there's some sort of old canopy. Would have been a structure here. So it just seems strange that it's here out of the way of everyone, next to a missile site and a former RAF and US Air Force base. Okay guys, that's going to do it from our first location. This was the former RAF Harrington, the former Operation Emily 4 missile site. Not a great deal to see, to be honest with you, but it's the stigmatism, what was actually here. You gotta think where we were standing there was nuclear missiles. So yeah, kind of interesting. We've enjoyed our little jolly about round here. We've been here for a couple of hours and now we're going to make our way to the Kelmarsh tunnels. There's also a military fuel dump situated next to the parking area of that. That's going to be the second vlog of today, so hope you can join us for that. If not, enjoy the rest of your weekend and we'll catch you in the movies. Bye for now.